Good evening, everyone. Chris Schultz, FridayNightVictors.com. Welcome to the 2024 high school football season. Practice started on Monday, and here we are, the usual suspects. We got Gary Hoff. Gary, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
And we got
Just
Frank
got off the golf
Basner.
course.
Got Frank in his Lions hat. How you doing, Frank?
Doing well. Gary, I figured you'd say something about how your dog has worms and something was
Yeah,
up with your crops. So I take
I'm,
it none of those things are happening.
I'm gonna
So
wait on those. I'm gonna wait.
yeah.
Yeah, to be
Oh,
determined.
well, how did you hit the golf ball tonight?
Not good.
Oh,
Not
geez.
good.
Well, did I
Um,
ever give you the best golf advice I ever received?
no,
The ball is already dead. You don't have to kill it.
that's my problem.
That's
I
pretty,
swing too hard.
that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
I always think fairways and greens, and I'm not very good. So, uh,
Hey, my golf game sucks too, guys. So,
So we excited for football, Frank? How about you, man? You excited? What's going on?
well, I say excited would be an understatement. I'm getting ready to head into my 10th season of reffing, so I made it this far, even though I'm going to be going westward quite a bit this season.
Okay. Gary, how about you? You excited for the season?
Well, of course. I mean, it's the best time of the year, really, and we have some great teams we're covering this year, and we usually do. But this year, I think there's some top-notch teams. Several that could make long runs in the postseason. So it's going to be a great year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm super excited, although it's been a little hectic being an athletic director, trying to make sure all the sports get off the ground. My gym's shut down right now, so my volleyball team's practicing off campus, which is never easy, but it is what it is. So, all right. So we thought tonight we would touch on a few things. Normally, guys, or I guess people out there, I don't tell the guys what questions I'm asking, but I gave them a heads up this time. So I'm going to go with Gary first. Gary,
Oh,
or I can go with Frank. You want me to go with
no,
Frank?
no, because if me and Frank have the same stuff, I'll lead it off.
All right, Gary, give us three teams you're excited about this year in 2024.
Okay. When you look at the 16 teams we cover, I'd say at least half are excellent. And the other half are kind of bordering in that area of, could be sleepers. I think you're going to ask about some sleeper teams too. This is just going to be a great year of coverage, but there are several teams that are outstanding. And, we're talking state title run potential teams. In no particular order, I'm going to go with your Rams, Chris. The mighty Rams of Flat Rock. They return, of course. You talk of Flat Rock, there's one guy you have to mention. That's Graham Youngie. He gets all the accolades, and he might even be sick of hearing about himself sometimes. But when you're that good, I mean, my goodness, he's the best quarterback in region history, I would have to say. And he's on pace to set another record-breaking season. He had nearly 3,000 yards passing, 27 touchdowns, and I'd be a little surprised if he didn't approach that again, or maybe even surpass. Um, and the Rams, right? Youngie, they got to replace Booms, so I think it's going to be a two-headed monster there potentially replacing Booms. It's going to take maybe two guys to do that, and Jacob Hagan is one of those guys, senior, rugged player, 180 pounds. I think this is his third year as a starter, if I'm not mistaken. Hagan. Big time player on defense. They return a ton. They have 20 seniors, Flat Rock. That's a lot for
You went
a
with
school,
seniors.
for the school Flat Rock size, right? I also want to give another player a big shout out. RJ Percha, 6'5", 260-pound senior, 3-year starter again. He's going to move to left tackle, if I'm not mistaken, defensive end and defense. Big time player, and they return 4 offensive linemen, to get that running game going. But it all starts and ends really with the magic man, Graham Youngie. But they have a lot of players, Flat Rock, a lot of good players, and I'm high on Flat Rock, and I'm sure you are as well, Chris. All right, no particular order. Carlson, definitely the leader in the clubhouse as far as the DRL goes, the Downriver League. Carlson's loaded. Isaiah Wright, I know I'm sure this isn't gonna be the first time you're going to hear his name. Big time player, big time offers. Michigan State, Wisconsin, Tennessee. When it's all said and done, I think you're going to see even bigger, better schools than that. So he's going to have a ton of offers. Sikora, right? Tight end,
Yeah.
big time player, college offers as well. So I think, when you look at who's going to win the Huron League, Flat Rock will be there. Um, Carlson is certainly sitting in the catbird seat of the Downriver League, and they are poised to. Catbird, yeah, everyone's looking at my cat. I'm sure it's embarrassing. I apologize, my wife.
And your dog.
Yeah, he's back there too. We have 4 cats, and that's supposed to be pictures of the 4 cats. I don't know. This is the cat's room, and I stay out of it. Other than this, anyway, a bit embarrassing. Where was I? Yeah, Carlson. They're gonna. I gotta believe they're gonna make a real run at this at a regional title. And dare you say Ford Field? I mean, I think they're that good. I think Carlson is loaded. And my third team, probably the favorite to win the Huron League again, the Riverview Pirates. They've just controlled things in the Huron League. They did split the championship last year, but they're loaded again. The running backs they have there. You're talking Adams, you're talking Pavanka, and I've seen some of these kids at I heard about them at the track meets, and they're just built like rocks, and you know how fast they are. So they've been in the weight room. They're poised to have a huge year. And Timmerman at center, I think he's down near 300 pounds. They're just loaded, and they would surprise me. It wouldn't surprise anybody if Riverview were to win the Huron League again. I mean, they're that good. So those would be my 3 teams: Flat Rock, Carlson, and a Riverview.
All right. Frank, how about you? Give us your thoughts.
Well, of the 3 teams that Gary mentioned, only one of them I put on there, and that one team was Carlson. And a lot of the reasons he mentioned, Isaiah Wright, kid's been getting Power 4 offers from some big name schools. I think next year at this time he's going to have a lot more from bigger names. I mean, Drew Sikora, tight end, who I think could be the second coming of Ben Prestula, who was an outstanding player. And really, I have yet to see somebody in the Downriver League outside of maybe Allen Park who can really challenge them. I know that game is going to be what decides the conference this year. I have Carlson as my sleeper in Division II. I mean, they could get to a semifinal or Ford Field, but I think it's really going to depend on if they run into, say, Warren De La Salle early on in the playoffs. But we'll have to see when the time gets there. But I think Jason Gendron and company, they've got the guys who can power through it and win those tough games. The other teams I mentioned, one of them happens to be Gary's homeboys, the SMCC Falcons.
I was
Now,
counting on you, Frank. I was counting on you.
yeah, now, granted, I know he didn't list them. I know he listed Riverview and Flat Rock as upper echelon teams in the Huron League, but can we just say Huron League this year at the top? Holy smokes! I mean, you got Riverview up there. You know what that you're going to get with them. You know what you're going to get with Flat Rock. But I think the Falcons are possibly going to say, "Hey, we're still here." You got a senior quarterback in Ian Foster who plays with the "I'm not losing" mentality. Hey, that really grew on me last year. Here you got Drew Harris, running back, feels like he's on his 12th year of eligibility. Feels like he's been there for forever. Or Brett Stark is a name that I'm really excited for. I've drank with his dad a couple of times. Sometimes I think he's going to be a name we're going to be talking quite a bit about. You have Brady Hines, who I consider to be old reliable. And there's a few other guys, too, that are going to be in the mix as well. But the thing I love about SMCC the most is they're not afraid to play anyone, anytime, anywhere. They're in the hot of the fire, the heart of the steel. That's going to make them a lot better when they go through a brutal Division 7 in these playoffs, especially in what could potentially be a district of death with them, Whiteford, who's D7, also Hudson and Clinton. So, playoff people, make that happen. It will be theater. And then the other team I'm going to mention happens to be my homeboys, the Ida Blue Streaks. They've got 9 starters back on offense, 7 back on defense. Offensively, I think this could be the best team that Jeff Potter has had. He's got 1,000-yard rusher back in Dean Thomas, who's a senior. Feels like he's been there for forever as well. Gavin All brings another one who's got some speed and can catch out of the backfield. Wyatt Dirkmatt, another running back who showed some flashes late last year. But here's a name that I think we may have overlooked last season, but how much of a loss he was, and that's Jeremiah Hoffman. He hurt his knee against Grosse Ile. He'll miss the entire year. He's back, stronger than ever. He's going to play some running back, but he's also the heart and soul of that defense at linebacker. I think he's going to be a really big difference maker, especially when you're playing those run-heavy teams like Clinton and Hudson and LCAA play. Hey, and we got to give some love to offensive lineman Jackson Wurtenberger. This kid has multiple offers to play at the D3 level. He's got a future there. They're very experienced. Also, Cam Satkowski. Those 2 guys are going to be road graders. And this could be the best line Ida has had, dare I say, since maybe 15 and 16 when they were going on regional runs. It's very possible. It's very possible I could see Ida going on a deep run, but it's really going to depend on if they have to run into the monolith known as Jackson Lumen Christi or Warren Collegiate. I'm hoping they won't run into them at least until the regional round, and then it's game on.
So that's your 3 teams. All right. Well, you guys covered all 3 of my picks.
I thought we might.
Yeah, SMCC, I think they're loaded, and I think they can win the league. I hear they're toying with a different offense. I have no idea why they would do that, but whatever. I don't coach football, so I just know that they should be able to score because they got a bunch of running backs. They've got a lot of talent over there, and I just think they're going to be really, really good. Ida. Same thing. I think Ida is going to be really, really good. Thomas and Wurzenberger were both all FMV last year. They got to go through the tough LCAA. And then, honestly, I think the best thing for them would be to go north, right, in the playoffs, as opposed to having to go west to see JLC. And I think with what they have back and the way they play football, that they could beat a Michigan Collegiate because other than was it last year CC played collegiate in the opener? Is that what it was, Gary? I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, last 2 years.
That's the first time they've really stopped the T when seeing it, right? And that type of offense. And I know Ida runs the ball a lot, so I would like to see them go north. I expect big things out of Ida this year. And then the other one is Flat Rock, and I don't want to be critical of where I went to school because they're going to be really good. And they went to the semis last year. They need to win the league. They need to win the Huron League. They've got to stop the T teams. They've got to stop Riverview from scoring. I know we talked a little bit in comment sections of the SMCC Flower game last year. Didn't CC only have 4 possessions? Isn't that what it was, Gary, or something silly like that?
I don't recall, but yeah, they had when they did get the ball, they kept it for quite a while.
And Flat Rock scored, but they had 1 possession where they didn't, and CC scored every time they had the ball, and it was just, they have to find a way to, pun intended, I guess, to beat Riverview and CC. So, I'm right on par with you guys. I do want to make sure I get out and see Carlson this year. I'd really like to get out and see them. Another team I'd like to get out and see, and maybe I made a mistake by saying I've never seen them play, is Bedford. Frank, what can you tell us about the Kicking Mules this year?
Oh, glad you asked. I'm making made a few notes on them. John Phillips has got a lot of seniors back this year. I mean, last year they were ravaged by a ton of injuries. And didn't really have a lot from their upperclassmen. This year they've got the experience back. But they do have a significant injury though, and that's to Owen Shabilsky, who was going to be one of their top running backs. He blew his Achilles out at a team camp at Bowling Green, and so he's out for the year. But fear not, Kicking Mule fans. There's plenty of guys who will step in, and you will be in good hands. Some of those guys, that running back group, Lucas Gerber, senior, he's been on the varsity roster for 3 years. Cole Johnson, another old reliable guy who's been around. Blake Rickner was kind of a surprise last year. John Phillips alluded to in his team email. But a name I'm going to give you is junior Jake Spoonmore. Kid is very fast. He was part of some really good track relays. I saw him play as a freshman in a game I reffed, oddly enough. And once I saw him and the way he exploded with the ball in his hands, I thought, this kid's going to be pretty darn good. So he'll probably have a say in the mix as well. And also Drew Logsden, who broke his collarbone last year. He was their quarterback. He's back healthy. I think having him back is going to be real key to fear the veer. And they've got 4 offensive linemen back who I really love. I mean, Chase Norbury is a returning starter, Hunter Fonts, Grant Whetstone, and of course my guy Hudson Heems, who I saw him play as a freshman on the basketball court, and he was just a monster getting rebounds. But I also mentioned Huddy because his father, Shane, was a gold medalist at the Olympic Games in 2000.
Wow, that's
Fun
cool.
fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think my biggest concern with Bedford is what are they going to do against the upper echelon of the SEC? I mean, because we know what Celine is, even though Joe Palka's gone, CJ Carr's gone, so new coaching staff and everything, but they're still Celine. They're not going to fall off completely off the face of the earth. Dexter could be the top team in the conference. Ann Arbor Huron has kind of been a thorn in the side. I mean, teams like Pioneer, I think, might have been a one-hit wonder last year. Here, Lincoln is kind of a pain, and I mean Monroe. Oh, that's a rivalry. Throw the records out the window. I really don't know what's going to happen when those two get together. And really, the only given I could say in the SEC is Skyline is just not good. Simple as that.
Fair enough.
So I think Bedford is going to be better this year. They'll get back to the playoffs. But I mean, if for me to put them in the upper echelon of the conference, I'm going to have to see some results first. So, I mean, I know some people may not like me saying that, but hey, sometimes you just got to show us.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Frank. Hey, I wanted to start the show with your trivia question, Gary,
Mm.
that you asked us this morning. You want to throw that out there, and then we'll give the answer at the end of the show? Can you frame it?
Yeah. Was it what program
I
since
can ask you.
well,
I can
yeah,
ask
it was since the 1970, what program has not been to the playoffs? Is that what it was?
There's only one current program
Yeah.
in the state of Michigan that has not been to the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's been
And
around.
they did not go in 2020 during COVID when
Yeah.
everybody got in.
Never been to the
That
playoffs.
that gives it away, Frank. I mean, I
Well,
got.
that's a hint.
Okay, so here's the question,
Gotta be,
people.
gotta be a,
Since the playoffs started in the 1970s, what team is the only team in the state of Michigan that is currently still has a team that has not made the state playoffs? We'll give you the answer at the end. So, Gary, real quick, Frank mentioned Monroe. What can you tell us about the Trojans?
Well, it's Cowrie's second year, correct?
Yeah.
Am I right on that?
yes.
So second year, so his culture starting to get established. So that's a good thing. I know they only have 4 starters back on defense, 4 on offense, something in that area, 4 or 5. So not a lot of starters back. So they're going to have to rely on a lot of newcomers, to get them over the hump. I know. I want to mention Tegan Simmons, who's a friend of mine. I coached him in basketball for years when he was a kid. He decided to play soccer, and he was a big time player, big time athlete. He's like 6'3", 220 pounds or something. Fast, physical, and he decided to play soccer, so that hurts a little bit. But good for him. Hopefully he's does awesome at soccer, but that was his choice. But if we're talking football, it hurts a little bit. But they do have some players over at Monroe. I mean, Tanner Collette, he might be the best football player in the region.
Yeah, I
He's
think he could make a run at the FMV
he
overall player
could.
of the year this year, I think.
I totally agree. He was first team all SEC, first team all region. I mean, that right there puts him in the running for all FNB top player there.
Yeah.
He's a big time player, 6'2", 220 maybe in that area. Both sides of the ball. Defensively, I think is where he really shines. He's just an aggressive player, and makes huge plays. And then of course, I mentioned these two players in the hopes and concerns. And Jax Jones, he's a big time, aggressive football player that just seems when he's out there, he's just one of those kids that looks like he loves to play football. And he's a kid that you want on the team. He was all league, honorable mention, and he's a senior as well. Colette's a junior, by the way. So, wow, how good is he going to be? But Jax Jones, they're really going to rely on those two to stabilize the unit. And I wanted to mention one more. They call him Cappuccino because his last name's a little hard to. I had to get coached on how to say this, but it's Cassiopo, I believe. If I'm saying it wrong, Monroe folks, let me know. Nolan Cassiopo, 6'2", 220-pound junior. Um, Big time playmaking ability, offensive, defensive line, and he was injured last year, so that he would have been a two-way star last year, I believe, even as a sophomore. So this year they're really going to count on him. Delmar Clay, 6'3", 330-pound senior, right? Big boy, defensive line, offensive line. He had forced a couple fumbles last year and made some big plays. So he had nearly 10 tackles for loss. So he's a player. So those are the guys they're going to lean on. But there's going to be some newcomers that they're going to have to step up if Monroe's going to crack that top half of the SEC and, get that big win over Bedford at the end of the year. And Riverview, I know Monroe wants to beat Riverview. So
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Great. Thanks. So the next question is, we got to be pretty quick because we try to keep this under, 35 minutes or so. Is sleepers. What team are people sleeping on? And I'm going to go first because I'm going to put the pressure on you guys to come up with something different. I'm going to go with the Huron Chiefs. As simple as that.
We all three had Huron.
Okay, well,
So, yeah,
I'm sure Frank will be able to talk about some players, but I know they've got 8 or 9 starters back on defense, which is a big deal. They've got 3 guys who started since their sophomore year on the defensive side of the ball. I can't remember names, but that's just my old age. Tom Hoovers is an excellent coach. Last year they missed the playoffs. They were 5-4, but they beat Flat Rock at the end of the year in what was a rivalry game. And I think that was only the 3rd time in Hoover's career that maybe he missed the playoffs. I don't know if that's right or not, but it's
I think they won their last 3 games too.
Yeah, so
you are correct, Gary.
I think they're a team that could challenge for the Huron League. They're just going to have to get off to a good start. They got a tough game against Livonia Churchill to start the year. Last year it was Frank Sleeper and
Mistakes were made.
And they beat the Chiefs quite handily. But anyways, I say the Chiefs. Gary, what do you think? Is that what you're going to?
I was going with Huron. I can just add on to that. I mean, I think it's impactful that we all think Huron. I think, Frank, are you going Huron too?
Absolutely, I'm going Huron.
Yeah, so all 3 of us chose Huron. So I think, they certainly could jump up and nab that Huron League title. I would not be surprised one bit. Cash Muzzy, maybe the best name we have this year. Cash Muzzy at quarterback. Big time.
That's Cash Muzzadlowski.
Yeah,
you might remember his older brother Gavin.
I do. And Ryan Anderson's probably the big time player. Great defense. I think they're going to be stout on defense with the 8 returning starters. Odell Anderson in the backfield, defensive backfield, excellent secondary. Their JV, although it doesn't necessarily matter, but it never hurts to have an undefeated JV team coming up. So you got kids that know how to win. So they got some good players in Huron, and you mentioned it, Hoover. They're going to start to look like these Allen Park teams that play that really, really good defense. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't surprise me one bit if Huron is there at the end of the year to playing games to win the Huron League.
Right. Frank, what do you want to add?
Well, I'm just going to come out and say it. Huron is my sleeper in the Huron League this year, and not just because of Little Muzzy being back. I mean, him and along with a lot of other guys were called up at the end of the year. Here saw some playing time. I mean, Huron ended the year with a 3-game winning streak, including that win in the war for the Ore over Flat Rock. And like you said, Tom Hoover, I think he kind of used that as to build some momentum. This is going to springboard them forward, and I'd say watch out for the Chiefs this year. I mean, I'd say we have a 4-horse race in the Huron League. Guys, not to get off subject, but I mean, you could say Huron, Flat Rock, Riverview, SMCC. I'd say any one of those 4 teams could win the conference this year.
Yeah, I
Do you
would.
agree?
Here's a little, I think you might see Anderson play a little bit of quarterback at Huron this year. Don't be surprised if you see that. So I think it's funny that all three of us thought they were the sleepers. So cool, good to
They're
know.
my sleeper every year, Chris. You know that.
Yeah, I mean they're apparently they got 80 kids out there practicing, so that's a pretty good
Yeah.
number
Yeah.
for a school their size, I suppose. So before we wrap this up, this year, we're going to be doing a couple of different things. We're going to have our usual stuff, our players of the week, our thoughts, not yours, Gary's rankings. We'll do, our picks, the video picks. But the one thing we will be doing is we are going to have game capsules. And we will either have those Friday night or Saturday morning when we get the information. I will be putting that together on Friday nights, and hopefully I'll get everything I need to write those and get those up. And but we appreciate you watching and listening as usual. Gary, what is your trivia question answer? Or do you want me to give it because I guessed it?
You did guess it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a Hamtramck Cosmos, and they are the only team. Back in the 70s and 80s, only a couple teams or 4 teams, I guess it was, made the state playoffs, and then in the 90s they expanded. And I know there was 3 times in the 90s they went 7-2 and didn't make the playoffs. And then in 2020, when everybody made it because of COVID, they didn't have enough for a team. And honestly, right now they're on a 4 or 5 game or 4 or 5 season winless streak. And so anyways, Frank had a pretty good answer. He had thrown out, who'd you throw out there, Frank?
I threw out the Mounties of Jackson Northwest, but they've only been playing since 1957, so I thought, okay, and they made it in 2020 as well. So
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe
We're not counting the COVID year. We're not counting COVID year.
Yeah,
yeah.
but I mean, I
Oh,
think
okay, well,
it's unique that Hamtramck didn't make it that year because they just didn't have a team. So,
Yeah.
all right, well, that's the show, you guys. Parting thoughts, Gary?
Parting thoughts. I know, Chris, you're Ida. You're huge on Ida this year.
Yeah.
Frank is as well. I am. We talked about the race in the Huron League. What that race in the LCAA. I mean, I'm telling you right now, Hudson's going to be real good.
They got 10 starters back on offense.
Yeah. Hudson's going to be
Yes.
outstanding. Clinton's going to be outstanding, and Ida's going to be outstanding. And you never know, another team could jump up there. But the LCAA is going to be really something this year. It's going to be fun to check those games out in one way or another. But really, really good football down here in Southeast Michigan this year, as always. But this year is absolutely no different. I'm really excited.
Yeah,
Well, Gary,
Frank,
you
thoughts too.
alluded to the LCAA being a 3-horse race between Ida, Clinton, and Onstead. I'll just go ahead and release
Hudson.
my root for Ida, Clinton, Hudson. Excuse me, my bad. I will go ahead and just release my root for blog scenario. All 3 of those teams finish at 7-1 in the conference.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think Onsted's is on the come up as well. I've been hearing that. So
Yeah, I mean, I did read that they've got some really nice skill players back, and I think Aaron Amthor is in I want to say his 2nd year there, so I think he's starting to get things rolling. And I mean, even a team like Blissfield, who they've been having camp too, they've still got some nice players who are coming back as well. Well, yeah, but I'd say don't sleep on Dundee either, because I know they lost some skill players, but they got Ryan Zanger back. They got some guys in the trenches back as well. Well, that they could be a team that could be interesting. So,
Well, and they open at
but
Flat Rock in week 1. I will say this, let's mention the TCC. The TCC will be a 3-team race.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned Whiteford.
Probably because there's only 3 teams in the league
Yeah,
now.
we haven't
Um,
mentioned Whiteford, and they've been to
Yeah.
Fort Field the last 2 years.
Yeah, you
We haven't
know,
even mentioned
and
them.
I think unfairly to them, they've just been
Yeah.
so good. They graduated a lot of kids, but they've got players back and they're not going anywhere. And I think we just, maybe our minds were just going the other way. So
I think we're all just waiting for week 10, 11 to see what that district's going to be down here.
The District of
Yeah,
Death.
yeah, to see
yeah,
who ends up in whose district as far as all those Division 7 teams go. But
Yes.
yeah,
okay, well, we're gonna try, folks, we're gonna try and do this once a week. We normally record on, I don't know, what do we record on, Tuesdays or Wednesdays? We try and have it up by Wednesday sometime. So
Mhm.
that's what we'll normally try and do. So with that, that's the show. We thank everybody for watching. So for Frank and Gary, I'm Chris Schultz, FridayNightVictors.com.